Hello, everyone, and welcome to our leadership interview today as part of the Visa Fintech Initiative. The theme today is Indian fintech startups and the multi-trillion-dollar payments opportunity. My name is Madan Mohanrao from Your Story, and on behalf of all us at Your Story, welcome to our session today. Our guest today is Arvind Ronta, Head of Products and Partnerships for India and South Asia at Visa. Before I introduce him, let's take a look at the context a little bit. The Asia Pacific region alone sees $17 trillion worth of payment flows, which are yet to be digitized. This represents an unprecedented opportunity in the region for innovation and financial inclusion in the payments landscape. Today, about half the adult world lives in the informal economy, dealing exclusively in cash. To be one of these estimated 2 billion people is to face financial barriers that make life risky, expensive, and inefficient. With a view to help emerging fintech startups solving for financial inclusion and the multi-trillion-dollar opportunity, Your Story together with Visa is putting together this platform. It features specially curated webinars, leadership talks, and ecosystem intelligence from leading minds in the fintech landscape to help fintech CXOs power their own incredible journeys. To discuss how Indian fintech startups can play a role in solving for the multi-trillion-dollar payments opportunity and Visa's plan in this space, we have with us today Arvind Ronta, Head of Products, India and South Asia at Visa. He is responsible for leading the product mandate across India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Nepal, Maldives, and Bhutan. He brings a wealth of payment and commerce products experience, strong general management background, and leadership across markets in the US, Canada, UK, and Asia. He earlier led the global products team at Discover Financial Services in Chicago and the global payments practice, strategy, and operations business at Deloitte Consulting. Arvind has an MBA and a bachelor's in mechanical engineering and is an alumnus of Queen's University in Canada and Kellogg School of Management in Chicago. His interests include reading nonfiction and playing golf and cricket. Welcome aboard, Arvind.
Thank you, Madan. That was a long
Good,
introduction. Thank
good to
you.
have you, Arvind. We've got lots of questions ahead of us, so let's get started. The fact that there are $17 trillion worth of payment flows which are yet to be digitized in Asia is remarkable. What does this mean in particular for the Indian fintech system? Arvind?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a massive opportunity. Um, and pandemic has only accelerated the digitization of consumer and business payments. So we will see a lot of realization of this opportunity. Just to put things in the context from an India perspective, you mentioned $17 trillion of flows in Asia Pacific. In India alone, we have $1 trillion of cash displacement opportunity. Well, the way we measure it is we look at the personal consumption expenditure, which is a percent of a GDP. How much of that is digitized today? And it's not surprising. In India, most of the transactions are still happening on cash and check. So 85 to 90% of that is still happening on non-digital modes. So it's a huge opportunity for Indian fintechs to digitize payments, make them more transparent, make them more secure. And by doing this, get more people in the fold or in inclusion of financial services, which is a bigger mandate for digitizing globally. In India specifically, what does it mean for fintech? So I think let's talk about the consumer trends, what we've seen shaping up as a result of this pandemic. One, in the offline world, we've seen a lot of acceleration in contactless payments, where you can simply tap and pay your card at a face-to-face infrastructure or inside a store because of all the things around COVID, where people are now trying to be more hygienic and want to be more touchless when they're making transactions or commerce. Contactless payment is a very secure and very credible form factor, and it's seen global rise. And because of pandemic, and of course, as soon as the lockdown eases up, we should see more reemergence of contactless payments. And what we've seen is the greater the share of contactless payment it is in an economy, the higher the number of digitization of payments and transactions that turn out to be. And I think we have a long way to go. Mature economies could see anywhere from 90 to 95% of all their payments done through contactless payments. So we've got a long room to cover. In the online space, what we are seeing is that consumers are getting more demanding. They want to get products and services to be made available when they want, where they want. So you'll see a huge spike of fintechs and big techs focused on delivering really convenient and faster checkout experiences for consumers. And the third trend in consumer is the blurring of lines between e-commerce and physical commerce. We've seen with platforms like Google Pay, Phone Pay, putting all these Kirana store owners and their inventories online when the lockdown happened, the first COVID wave happened, and then they literally brought all these offline mom and pop stores to online commerce and then made them available to the to all the consumers who could now digitally access the inventories and make purchases from the neighborhood Kirana stores all online. We've seen players like small fintechs like Instamojo um, trying to get a physical retailer online in a matter of days and setting up their e-commerce front and all the things that happen to take a merchant online. A lot of these are examples where Indian fintechs have already started to tap into this as an opportunity. And there are many more examples, but I see this as a huge opportunity for Indian fintechs to lead from the front and tap into this unmet demand that exists to convert a lot of these, you know, cash transactions and displace it with digital modes of payments.
Thanks, Arvind. You also mentioned the pandemic and its impact. The pandemic has definitely accelerated digitization across sectors, and fintech startups are witnessing increased investments also. So, how is Visa planning to engage with Indian fintechs to grab their share of the pie, Arvind?
See, we work with fintechs. We've invested in Indian fintechs. We've made investments, as you might know, in local fintechs in India. And From how we look at fintechs, of course, if you think of Visa scale, Visa is one of the we often say ourselves as one of the largest fintech. Like, we've been around for many years, but if you think of us, we are enabling connections between the merchant and the issuer, right? Or the cardholder and the merchant. And there's so many ways in which we see opportunity in India when it comes to fintechs and our partnership in fintechs. And I'll give you a couple of examples, right? One, we see them playing a key role in distributing a lot of new solutions, new innovations to en masse, to the last mile in India, right? So how can we help take some of our Visa solutions and actually work with these fintechs to enable this to the last mile? That's a big priority for us. So that what that translates into is we work with fintechs to create new solutions. And a lot of our solutions in India has been first to India as well as first to global. We've launched a product called SafeClick as an example, working with local fintechs, which makes it easier for you to check out online more securely, much more faster. This innovation, as an example, would have been impossible if we wouldn't have partnered with local fintech. Second example I can give you is where we have a lot of product assets. We've got a lot of, we have our own API platform. We have our own, we call it Visa Fintech Fast Track program, where we are bringing a lot of these fintechs to access the scale of Visa globally and through various programs, right? So Visa has a lot of depth, reach, and experience in so many ways where fintechs could leverage that. Indian fintechs could leverage that. And we worked with so many fintechs in India. Last year, we had Visa Everywhere initiative. We had 400 fintechs participated in it. This year, we've launched Visa Fintech Initiative. We are expecting a huge spike again in terms of engagement as we saw last year. So from our vantage point, it's both getting fintechs in India access to what Visa has to offer in terms of scale, reach, technology, innovation, and then relying on fintechs here in India to co-create some new experiences, new solutions for us, which can actually solve for unique challenges when it comes to payments in India. So these are some of the ways which we've been trying to focus on in India.
Thanks, Arvind. Speaking of co-creation, let's talk about fintech startups for a moment. We're seeing the emergence of a completely new breed of fintech startups these days. What are your views on the fintech startup ecosystem in India, and how does it compare to the other ecosystems in other parts of the world? Arvind?
Yeah, so in India, fintech is one of the fastest growing I believe it's one of the fastest growing fintech markets in the world. If I remember, I think there is um, fintech market valuation is supposed to reach around 150 to 160 billion dollars by 2025. That's a huge that's a huge opportunity. And I think if you look at the fintech investments happening and the fintech inflows, investment inflows that have happened in our country, um, we saw 1.5 billion dollars in just first half of 2020, which was roughly around 60 to 70% more than prior year. And this is happening right in the middle of COVID, which you can imagine is going to be a very hard time to raise funding and so on. So I think Indian fintech and the ecosystem is second to none globally when it comes to the talent pool we have in India and how easily you can get fintechs with deep talent pool, like from a technology perspective, from new IP perspective. A lot of these fintechs have really created some amazing products and services. There's a huge, large demand in our market, like which is pent up demand that could be served up by these fintechs. And so, from a market perspective, that's a huge opportunity. We look at large initiatives like Aadhaar or UPI, GST payments. These are the bedrock of innovation that will happen, and that has actually been happening in our market in our country for now several years. This enabling policy environment, regulatory environment, industry environment, which allows for these examples of open data, account aggregator, and UPI. This entire digital infrastructure opens up so many opportunities for fintechs to open up new use cases, participate in new payment flows, create new monetization or revenue streams for themselves as a business. It's an amazing opportunity. And then the last one I would say is investment ecosystem. We just talked about it. India has a vibrant venture capital and angel investment scene, right? And if you look at it, it's backed by market depth in growth stage capital, which if you look at it, all this capital is coming from well-established VCs, well-established funds. It speaks to the maturity of the ecosystem in India as it relates to fintech. And I think one of the interesting stats I remember that out of 21 unicorns in India, around one third of them are in fintech. So that just tells you huge opportunity as it relates to fintech scene in India and their ability to influence, this converting a lot of these cash commerce into digital commerce.
Thanks, Arvind. Those are some very important and inspiring insights for our audience. Let's take a step back to about a year ago. Last year, the Visa Everywhere initiative got a lot of interest from the Indian startup ecosystem. What were some of your learnings from that initiative, and how do you plan to build on it this year? Arvind?
Yeah, so initiative actually for us was marquee event. We localized Visa Everywhere initiative. It's a global initiative we do. It was first done in US. Been doing this for 5, 6 years globally in different markets. In India, one of the things we did, we localized it, we customized it and gave it a very Indian flavor. We covered multiple destinations, tapped onto local fintechs in those communities, and you know, um, in India, that translated into huge participation. Like we had highest number of participants for Visa across Asia Pacific in Visa Everywhere initiative. There were like 400 participants who submitted ideas and innovation, and we shortlisted 10 of them, and then finally three big winners we shortlisted. You know, this is a huge program for us globally. We have run this in 100 plus countries, 6 continents, and then we've kind of engaged more than 6,000 startups who have collectively raised $2.5 billion in funding. So when you apply that global lens in the India context, of course, uh, it was first time we did it. It was also covering local fintechs. As I said, we went to key cities like Bangalore and Delhi and Hyderabad and Mumbai, and focused on 3 areas in where we wanted these fintechs to problem solve for us. One was in B2B payments. How do you digitize business to business supply chains? Second one was installments, or think of affordability. Like, what are the ways in which consumer can access credit easily? There were a bunch of ideas there. And then the third one was, how do we enhance um, the small merchant digitization, or, like, we call it acceptance, small merchant acceptance of digital payments. And we finalized winners in each of these categories, and we've shortlisted companies, and the winners. Um, for us, it was not just important that they were working on a problem which we felt was very important for India to solve, and we cherry picked big problem statements that were relevant for India. What is also interesting, and in the same program, we actually gave them access and mentorship from Visa employees globally, helping these startups to think through their solutions, the prototypes as they were working through it. So gave us a lot of opportunity to work very closely with all these fintechs. And how we have taken this forward is the program has now been over, but we have commercial partnership with all our finalists. So we ended up following through on those pilots and prototypes, and we took it forward. We have a very strong engagement on the heels of this program, even with RBI. So RBI had an amazing initiative on RBI Sandbox, and it allowed a lot of these local fintechs to innovate around offline payments and cross-border payments. These are great opportunities for us at Visa to partner with a regulator and bring in local fintechs to drive this innovation, to help regulator also think through their policy framework on some of these new innovations, right? So we've been spending a lot of time with local fintechs and RBIs, the team at RBI, to stand up these innovation. One of the pilots is on with the local fintechs again, working with us. We are working with 3 fintechs and the RBI team on figuring out the use cases in cross-border payments to make it more secure, transparent, and efficient. The cross-border payments has a huge opportunity to be more seamless. So these are a bunch of opportunities that all started because of Visa Everywhere initiative. We got all these fintechs from there, and then we followed through and then have been engaged with them for a bunch of initiatives in the industry.
Thanks, Arvind. That's a very wide range of opportunities and players in this space. Tell us about some of the partnerships that came out of this initiative. Did the Visa Everywhere initiative result in any interesting fintech partnerships for Visa, Arvind?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll quote few. So one I said, like, there were finalists who we ended up signing commercial partnerships, and these were around business to business digitization of supply chains. These were around launching products like installments, or launching technologies of tap to phone for more to driving more acceptance of digital payments on the merchant front. There were others. We had partners like StashFin and SlicePay. We enabled lending on prepaid solutions with that. So it's a huge opportunity where, as an example, a lot of people are eligible for credit, but they may not have credit cards. So how do you enable loans on their prepaid card, which can be used at anywhere they choose to spend? So that was one example. We also had instant pay, on the other hand, which allows customers access to digital accounts to spend, save, and track money. It's kind of a new banking platform using prepaid. We have a partnership with SmartCoin Financials, which is focused on streaming a new line of business by providing consumer loans to the underserved middle and lower income groups uh, through instant digital disbursements. And then we also have Red Carpet, with whom we plan to issue credit cards to new to credit customers and underpenetrated segments for quick and easy and more efficient access to credit. Um, you know, we've worked with um, several fintechs actually as part of the Visa Everywhere initiative, whether it's local fintechs like Open, Paymate, BillDesk, FP Labs. A lot of a lot of them have been focused on solving for problems around credit access, digitization of of merchants, so to drive more merchant acceptance of digital payments, and as I said, making B2B supply chains more digital. A lot of those are still on cash checks, so very archaic. So whole span of as you can see, of partnerships, and it still continues.
Thanks, Arvind. Let's talk now about your Visa Fintech Initiative. What is it about this initiative that excites you the most? What aspects of it do you think the Indian startups would be excited about most? What do they stand to gain in this, Arvind?
Yeah, see, one of the benefit of this program, I think, is they get, specifically the younger fintech startups, uh, they will get global recognition, on a platform like Visa. So that instant elevation, that is super important, right? As you are as young startup trying to get exposure to your product, get exposure to investors, get exposure to multiple markets. I think that's a uh, huge plus. And as a result of that, you get exposure to issuers and the merchant ecosystem, because a lot of these fintechs are trying to figure out how to make inroads in and demonstrate credibility to issuers and merchants, because a lot of these solutions will require the bank or the merchant buy-in. Um, of course, there's always a monetary element to uh, incentivize startups who can execute a proven solution. So these are a bunch of benefits, but I think the biggest one, as I said, when you work with Visa, you get huge access to the network of Visa partners globally, and with Visa team locally here in India, you get access to the expertise, the depth of talent pool that we have at Visa, uh, which can advise you, can mentor you to think through your solutions in a much more scalable way. Because at Visa we think in scale, like we always design products with them, with much greater scale and impact. So that thinking and exposure to that network of partners we have is a huge plus. Also from us, from a benefit to Visa, we love to have solution partners in fintechs who can take a lot of our products and solutions at Visa and make it more fit for purpose for Indian consumers. And I think that's the benefit we see in fintechs. And it's a mutual partnership that we see where fintechs can apply um, our solution set to a very local problem that they may be seeing in their constituency or their districts or whatever. That last mile connectivity is super important, right? As you can imagine, for relevance for consumers. Um, it also allows us to honestly discover some of the best startups in the world. As I said earlier, Indian ecosystem for fintechs is second to none. We have an amazing talent here, um, great products being built out for great demand in the market. So if you look at this, it will help us identify startups that we can actually take to other parts of the world. We've actually done, a lot of accelerator programs. We have one running in Singapore right now, where we've taken Indian fintechs right here from India to Southeast Asian markets. In prior years, we've even taken fintechs to US and European markets. So that allows us to spot the right fintechs that we can take globally and give them that exposure. And then the last is, fostering this culture of innovation. We work with more innovative fintech startups. We hope to get much more energy in our industry where we can come up with some innovative, cool solutions that help our issuer partners, that help our merchant partners. And it also helps push the regulators' digitization agenda. Regulators coming up with more and more policy frameworks to help the industry get more digitized. And I think these fintechs are going to help us do that.
Thanks, Arvind. Let's just go back to the question of partnerships for a minute. What kinds of partnerships does Visa expect to come out of its fintech initiative for India, and how will this program work with Indian fintech startups? Arvind?
So, there are bunch of areas. I think one, we would like to see fintechs being able to use um, products, APIs, assets that we have, and take those and be able to deploy those in their stack. So whatever their product stack is, if they can seed some of our products and solutions and make it more relevant to their target market, I think that'll be a great collaboration. So I would call it more solution based, where they are taking our solutions and delivering it to the end product or user. Second one is more distribution based, where it'll be great if some of these fintechs could leverage our reach of all the issuers, partners we work, merchant partners we work in India, and even potentially globally down the road, where they can, or their platform could serve up solving for specific problems, whether it's around, one of the areas we've been focused on is how do we enable credit access? I spoke earlier about it, right? Like, how do you help someone who doesn't have a traditional credit get access to credit? So these innovative constructs that have come up in the market. That'll be really interesting. How do you do that? And how another problem, of course, is, or opportunity for fintechs to work on is, how do you digitize banks? How do you help our bank partners be more nimble and innovative when it comes to, delivering customer experience at a speed of light? Like, how do we be more efficient? And we are focused on that. And if fintechs can collaborate with us with solutions, services to deliver on that front, I think it'll be a great collaboration. The other one, as I said, right, like there is a collaboration to take some of these fintechs on a global stage. If that could work out, I think we would love to see any of these Indian fintechs actually, go to global markets where all the 160 countries that Visa serve up, and I think truly become a global fintech. That'll be good to see. Fintechs in India going global and reaching that scale of impact.
That's certainly a very encouraging prospect, Arvind. Let's talk a bit now about the other aspects of our ecosystem here. The India stack is a key enabler of the booming open banking ecosystem. What do you see as the opportunities within this stack in terms of, payments, data sharing, open credit space, Arvind?
A huge opportunity. We work very closely with the think tank iSpurt, which is behind the India stack. A lot of our engagement with the think tanks in India, even with our issuers, is around how do you take that India stack and open up to new use cases. One of the new use cases we are focused on right now is credit to MSMEs. That's a huge problem in India. It's apparently sized around $350 billion of opportunity, where a lot of this credit is not formalized. So you can imagine, like, there's a lack of transparency, inefficiency, and the reality is that there is there are more MSMEs who are credit starved. So how do you solve for that? And I think the India stack, and more recently, account aggregator framework and opportune framework for credit enablement network that has been conceptualized. We're working with lenders and loan service providers and think tanks like iSport to figure out how do we scale this up? How do we bring Visa's expertise to of global interoperability, scale, efficiency, that we are not just running proof of concepts, but we are really running real scalable products for the size of the market we have. So this is it's a huge opportunity. And if I have to tell you, I mean, uh, everything around um, open data where someone can access through the technology infrastructure that exists in the market and what is being created in the market. Um, if you can get a loan application in 7 steps, all digital end to end, and as a small business owner or as an MSME, that's huge, right? And I think that's something that not only in India but many markets globally haven't seen. And this would be, if we can perfect that model just like we have done on real-time payments, that would be a huge opportunity for us to take to other markets as well. So a lot of opportunity and a lot of um, avenue for India to be a role model for the rest of the world on this one.
Thanks, Arvind. For the last couple of questions, let's move now from opportunities to the challenges that our audience may be facing. What do you see as the gaps that fintech startups are usually challenged with, and how can Visa help overcome these kinds of challenges? Arvind?
Yeah, I think at a baseline level, I think there is from a consumer perspective, there is a preference for cash in our country. Um, so, if you imagine a fintech who's trying to build a cashless economy, and so this preference for cash amongst Indian consumers is a major obstacle to deal with. There are challenges around connectivity issues in India. The smooth internet services are must have or are the bedrock for flourishing fintechs. And I think we have a lot of challenges in the market where internet service providers are still struggling to provide faster speed with consistency of high bandwidth. That would have made everything to do with secure and seamless data transfer would be much more easier, because there are issues around that. There is friction in from a connectivity perspective, and it's getting better, but there's some road to cover. Um, our regulatory framework uh, has um, to evolve as these innovations are coming up, right? And I think there's that opportunity which I was discussing earlier with sandbox. Regulatory sandbox is a huge opportunity where fintech companies can work in that model to adapt and understand, as well as the regulator can also adapt and understand what is the right policy framework for new innovations. That's still a challenge. I think we're working towards it, but still some road to cover. And I think as more and more commerce will happen online, there will be instances of or risk of breach of cybersecurity. So I think that's the biggest one. I would say that in our business, if a trust is broken once, all bets are off, right? So there's a high bar when we are rolling out new innovations, new products, that security is paramount, right? We want to be right balancing security and experience, but you can't have a great experience at the cost of security. So I think emphasis on how do you have very tight um, data security policies, and then as a fintech, how do you maintain and stay on top of all these different types of breaches or cybersecurity risks that are more prevalent as more and more digitization is going to happen, or more cloud-based infrastructures propagate. Some of these are areas that the fintechs will have to wrestle with. And then, of course, from a Visa's perspective, we have focused a lot on this, like tokenization or Visa Secure for online, because we know that these are things that fintechs can rely on Visa to deliver to this consumer, because we have perfected these technologies over several years in multiple countries. And then on the pandemic front, right, like because of recent pandemic, there has been a challenge, right? Like a lot of small businesses have struggled to get access to credit. And if you look at broadly in B2B ecosystem, business to business payments ecosystem, we have a lot of dependency on cash, which is both expensive and uh, opaque from transparency perspective. So it's highly inefficient. Um, so you have businesses starving for credit when it comes to small businesses specifically, and you have large businesses still operating in cash. And that is, as part of the pandemic, I think it's changing, it's evolving, but I think it's still one of the challenges for fintechs on, how to. I think here's some examples. I mean, like how to get easy access to credit and stay more safe and secure and really focus on delivering technologies which are you know which are able to withstand some of the challenges around connectivity and preference for cash for consumers and so on.
Thanks, Arvind. So just to wrap up, would you like to share some advice, some tips, some suggestions for the aspiring fintech entrepreneurs in the audience on how to succeed in these uncertain times and how to succeed in the times beyond?
If I have to say a few things, a lot of focus in fintechs is typically on deep tech skills or in some cases financial skills or fundraising skills. Those are important, but they're not enough, right? As you think of scaling your fintech startup, you need skills around general disciplines around business development, compliance, legal, uh, people development. How do you retain talent in your really smart startup? These are very important to complement with a core skill set of deep tech depth or deep financial depth. So that's one. Second, I would say is, uh, you know, think of partnership with the ecosystem in a different manner. I mean, oftentimes fintechs approaches that we are here to shake up things. And we are going to lead the change, and I think those are all good things. But a lot of, at least in the payments ecosystem, a lot of things can only be driven out of pure collaboration. If you're not collaborating with the ecosystem, it's very hard to bring into effect whatever fintech might be trying to pursue. So think of partnerships with issuers or lenders. Think of partnerships with us at Visa. I mean, that's something that we cherish a lot, where we can give these fintechs access to some of our bank partners, some of our merchant partners. Collaboration is key. So don't try to conquer the Everest alone, as they say, right? Like you have to bring the tribe along, and you have to form good collaboration. So that's important. Um, and then the third thing I would say in fintech, because it's regulated space, right? And there are a lot of compliance regulation for all the right reasons. Um, I think fintechs should, from very early on, develop an appreciation for, as they think about new products and services, how can it be in tandem with the regulatory or market dynamics, or specifically regulatory dynamics, so that it's not a choice between innovation and regulation, that they both have to coexist as a fintech. So I think those are few pieces of advice I could suggest.
Thanks, Arvind. This has been a fantastic conversation. You've shared so many trends and tips for our audience. I think three key sets of takeaways for me are the three E's: ecosystem, engagement, excellence. So all the aspiring entrepreneurs in the audience need to map out the ecosystem. It's complicated. It's changing very fast. Secondly, engage with the players. You just heard how to engage with players like Visa, for example. And third, excellence. Make sure your product or service is excellent in terms of quality, service, security, and so on. Arvind, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Bob.